Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Lamorne Morris, the Emmy Award-winning actor who plays Garrett Morris in Jason Reitman's great film Saturday Night. Lamorne, first, congratulations on that Emmy. I'm sure that has not gotten old hearing Emmy Award-winning actor.
Thank you. No, it hasn't. It's still unbelievable to me. It's you jump into this business wanting to just have fun and have some sort of career freedom and just do this for the rest of your life. So when people give you accolades like that, it's a bit jarring, but it's cool.
Where has the Emmy wound up? Where are you keeping it?
Right now it's in my living room.
Nice.
I'm not take that back. It's in my kitchen. It is in
Okay.
my kitchen. My sister yesterday was she likes to remind me, and these are her words. She goes, "Lamorne, you ain't shit," and she likes to remind me of that. And then one time, so yesterday when she said that we were in the kitchen cooking, I said, "Give me 1 second," and she goes, "You better not." And I said, "I gotta do it. I'm sorry." And I took it off the shelf and I sat it in front of her while she was cooking. I said, "Just let that sit, let that sink in while you cook."
Awesome. So you play Garrett Morris on in Saturday Night, Jason Reitman's film. I know I'd read. I think you auditioned for SNL, right? This is before maybe
Yeah.
you got New Girl, and you wanted to be on SNL. I guess
Mhm.
like maybe no, but did going through that experience at all help you understand the character and just the mindset of someone who was on SNL any differently or better?
Well, I wouldn't say that. Well, to a small degree, yes, because I didn't get the role on SNL.
Right.
It's such a hard process. So all those folks that get cast on the show, they're brilliant. They are going through the ringer and they earned that spot to be there. Imagine what it was like on day one. So I knew my second city process. I know my theater process, and I know how hard it is to get a show off the ground and how many moving pieces there are to get something off the ground. I've been a part of TV shows that are pilots. So you see the writers and the studio folks and the directors, and everyone's kind of going crazy. And then you got the personalities of the actors. So that audition process it wasn't a big part of my motivation for this. It was just my experience as a performer in general, because it's always chaotic, it's always hectic. It's very rare that you get a smooth transition into something. You have a smooth time while filming it, and you have a smooth time on your way out. At some point, chaos will ensue.
When you went in for Garrett, I guess what was your entry for him as like obviously we know Garrett Morris from SNL, but also
Mhm.
you're playing him in like it's not a documentary, so it's a movie. So I guess like what was your
Mhm.
entry point into the character, and like how'd you kind of approach it, like blending what we know about Garrett Morris, but you know about
Mhm.
Garrett Morris with what's on the page. Like how'd you kind of
Yeah.
create this version of Garrett Morris?
Well, no matter what, I knew I needed it to be a high pressured situation. Jason Reitman, that was his objective for this movie was for it to feel hectic, chaotic, even though we know the outcome. He wanted it to feel like you didn't and you were on the edge of your seat. And so all the characters, I look at it as a puzzle. We all had to fit different pieces of that puzzle to make Jason's vision come true. So I knew that at the core, if I played the stakes of the moment, that the rest would be just kind of icing on the cake. So I made sure to start that that's what it was. It felt heightened and it felt tense. And Garrett's essentially, which is accurate to what he says. He was struggling with his identity there. He didn't know exactly, how he would fit. Which piece of the puzzle is he? Because it didn't seem to fit at some point. And then, throughout his journey, he then realizes, oh, I just slide in right here. That's where I go. That's my point here on the show. So I knew that if I played that, and if everything else failed, at least I knew that the puzzle and that the entire movie wouldn't have suffered. I got lucky with knowing Garrett, not personally, but growing up watching him on Martin and Jamie Foxx show. And I like to consider myself a bit of a mimic where I can kind of tap into, people's isms here and there. And he's definitely someone where his body language is like leading the charge in his performance. You know what I mean? He has like every limb on his body is performative. So I had that down even before the audition. I just watched I just watched him growing up. And so I knew that right away, if I play the moment and if I play the scene for what it's calling for, the rest is just icing on the
Hmm.
cake. And I got lucky. You know, people seem to really like it. I ultimately at its core, I wanted Garrett to like it, and if Garrett was happy with my portrayal of him, then I was happy. No matter what, no matter who else liked it or who didn't, I could always go back and say he liked it. So I'm good with that. Yeah, I guess I'm lucky that he did.
What have you like? Yeah, like what has he like? What kind of feedback did he give you? I guess in terms of like what he liked about it.
He loved the fact that I played it honestly.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we talked prior to shooting, we talked about his cigarette smoking and how um and how that was like his I don't want to say security blanket, but it was like his he always had one. Said he would hide cigarettes around the set. He always had a cigarette. He was just in a way it was a security blanket. You just keep it. And so I went into it knowing that a lot of my movement would be based on the cigarette, you know, and there's a certain ism that a person who chain smokes has, and I wanted to make sure I had that in there. So he appreciated that, and the singing. He was like, man, I did not know you were a singer. And I was like, well, I was trying to be like I'm just doing what you did, and so he was very appreciative of that as well.
Yeah, I mean that scene obviously is amazing, and like the high point of the arc for Garrett, right, in the film.
Yeah,
And I guess like how yeah like how'd you approach that? I don't think he didn't sing that song in the first episode, but I know he sang it in the
no,
first season. So like
yeah.
so you
Mhm.
got that obviously to like maybe look at. But I guess how did you kind of approach it? And getting singing like obviously he's like a like it says in the film, like, a Julliard-trained actor. He's very talented, like all these different things. So like how did
Yeah.
you kind of like approach it to make sure you're doing that justice?
Well, like you said, that scene comes in episode 11, maybe. I forget which episode, but he had to rehearse it at some point in his head. You know what I mean? And we just used it as part of the
Right.
sound check. And so I knew. So if you watch his actual performance when he performed that song, it was something called the Death Row Follies, I believe. And he had his prison suit on, and he's doing this whole thing. So he's being very like defiant towards the warden and the prison guards. So this one was a bit different. This one I said, okay, since it's a rehearsal, I'll just make it a bit more operatic and a bit more of a singing performance. I got John Baptiste's band behind me playing. So I was like, I gotta do a little something different. I can't just go out there and go crazy. I have to actually try um, to get some of that vocal texture and quality. So I work with a vocal coach named David Stroud, and this guy's he trains Billy Crystal, so he's everybody, you name it. Like they've come through his vocal training, and so he said to me, he's like, we can go completely operatic with this, but it will be so different than Garrett's. Garrett was like, again, he was being defiant and even though Garrett has this smooth voice in this song in particular, he was just being, this rowdy individual. So we wanted to blend the two.
Hmm.
And so you start off with a little bit of, opera, and then you just go back into the crazy a little bit. And I think it worked. I think it worked. People seem to really like it. And I'm happy with it as well. So, we'll see.
And what
What's
was
funny is
like,
that since
yeah,
then, people have offered me opportunities to sing in different projects now. It's just so funny to me.
what was like to do it on like how many times did you have to do it on set, I guess?
We did it maybe 5 or 6 times. I want to
Okay.
say 5 or 6 times. No auto tune, no nothing. I, that made me a little bit nervous. I thought, I thought we would go in an ADR and do it or something like that. And Jason, the way he put this movie together and the way John Baptiste scored it was insane. So a lot of stuff was done live on Steve Morrow, our sound mixer, and he was just everyone was wired at the same time. All the mics were live. You know, I recorded it that day. He played it back to me a minute after I walked off set. He said, "This is how it sounds." And I said, "Oh, cool." I was like, "So what'd you do to it?" He goes, "Nothing. I didn't add anything to it." I was like, but you
Wow.
will when the movie comes out, right? And he said, no. It's like, damn
It's
it.
like your regular Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, right? On Wicked, they sing
I
live on
know,
set.
right?
That was, and you also then singing live
They
on set.
they've always compared me to those two. Uh, I've always been in the same category with those two.
Do you like you also you do? I mean, you're kind of talking about there a little bit. Your not impression, but you mimic, I guess, a little bit of his voice, Garrett's voice. I think you do
Hmm.
really well. Just having watched interviews with him and like having watched interviews with you, it's not the same voice. You're
Yeah.
obviously doing it, but it's like I think it's very subtle too at times. So I guess like how did you kind of approach, yeah, like making like doing that voice and like making it sound like you thought it should?
Yeah, he has a certain drawl on certain words, and he a lot. And it's very melodic. A lot of his tones, man, it's a lot of up and down. And a lot of old black folks from that time had that very similar swag in their vocal texture. So I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't too cartoony and that I made it a subtle thing that and the cool thing about Jason is that he's always checking in with you to see if you're comfortable. Hey, you want to take another shot at it? Hey, you want to heighten it? Hey, you want to lean more into the body language as opposed to the vocal texture in this scene? And he was very specific with a lot of those things. I mean, he gave us a lot of freedom, a ton of freedom. But every once in a while, he would still come in and be director and say, hey, try it like this or try a different version of it. And then you would get an opportunity to play. And I think his final takes, I think worked. I think the film is, and that's every character too. Every character in this film, in some way, shape, or form, they embody the characters in which they're portraying, and they do such a great job at it that it's mind blowing to me.
It,
And especially because a lot of these actors are really young, and it just makes me like optimistic about the future of our business because
Mhm.
they go, well, if they're going to be in it, we're going to be fine.
Well, you mentioned that too. Like obviously, like Garrett, and it's in the film. Like Garrett is feels like an outsider, especially because of like his stature and like compared to the cast at the time, much like a lot
Yeah.
of newcomers and stuff. So maybe a little bit similar, like you're saying. Like there are a
Hmm.
lot of young actors and they're not as experienced as you. I guess
Hmm.
like how did you feel? Like what was your place in the ensemble then, or like with the other actors? Like how did you feel?
Very similar to Garrett, to be quite honest with you. As far as the cast members of SNL, I was the oldest, just
Right.
like Garrett was the oldest. And, you know, uh, a lot of times, like a big group would be going to one particular place to do something. Hey, we're all going to go here. And then sometimes I would not be able to go. So it's like, I got to go and shoot this one scene. I'll be okay. Yeah, I'll meet up with you guys later. And it felt, they were showing us photos from back in the day of, the cast hanging out, candidly. They're in the writer's room, they're having drinks, they're at the bar, they're here. I mean, hundreds of photos. There was only one photo in which you saw Garrett in, and it was like a photo shoot photo. It was like, oh, he had to be there. But the rest of the time, like he either wasn't invited or he didn't want to be there. He had his own thing going on. And that's not true for myself personally with this cast. I love this cast. But there were moments where there's like a big group scene that Garrett's not in. And I don't know if that was intentional by Jason and Gil, the writer, but it definitely I felt a little bit like Garrett in moments, where it's like, oh, I'm in my like we're in the holding area waiting to go shoot something. And it's like, oh, we need you. And I'm like, oh, I'm not in this scene, I guess. All right, I guess I'm
Mhm.
not in this moment. I'll just wait here. I'll just hang out. Can I go back to my apartment? Can I it was a lot of that happening. Which definitely, bled into the film because you feel it and you see it.
Right. Do you have like obviously like we talked about at the beginning there, you had auditioned for SNL. Have you ever gone to SNL? And have you gone since this movie, I guess? Like in two-part question there, maybe.
Well, I haven't gone since the movie. I
Okay.
would love to because I want to host the damn show.
I mean, you would be
Um,
great.
I think so too, but Lauren, he doesn't return my phone calls. He doesn't answer the door when I show up at his house unannounced. Nothing. So, I would love to, but I haven't been back. I did go to see it early on, maybe 2012, 2011 or something
Okay.
like that, when Zoe Deschanel was hosting. And so we as a cast for New Girl, we went out to support her and it was fun. It was fun. Even being in an audience, you can see how intense it is, and how I get why people get nervous before shows like that because you're working with masters of hilarity
Mhm.
and you got to fit in and you got to blend in and people are coming to see you perform and that opening monologue I get is nerve-wracking, but I like to think that I hosted Kimmel a few times. I think I've hosted Kimmel maybe at this point 5 times. And my favorite part is the monologue. You know what I mean? You're doing bits, you're
Mhm.
saying funny things, and the people behind the camera help you out a lot. So I'm like, it's a no-brainer, guys. Somebody who knows Lauren, just, why not, man? I won an Emmy this year. It's a good time.
It's great. It could not be a better time to do Lamorne Morris. And if you're watching this, Lorne Michaels, I can't believe you would be because of me, but not because of Lamorne. But you should definitely call Lamorne to do this. You mentioned New Girl there. I know
Yeah.
you reunited with Jake, Damon, and Max for People's Sexiest Man issue.
Hey,
First, congratulations on that great honor, obviously.
thank you. You
Uh,
said it. You said it. I didn't say it. You
you
said
mentioned I know
it.
Jay, in that interview I was reading it. Jake busted your balls for not wanting to do a New Girl reunion. I'm not going to ask you about a New Girl reunion, but I would say this: the four of you are so great together. Have you talked about other projects that you could do with the group of you together?
Yeah, I mean, we have talked about a reunion as well, but that's,
Okay,
that's out of our hands. It's not up to us,
yeah.
and because we'd all love to do it. But yeah, there are plenty of projects that we all talk about doing together. Damon and I just worked together again. I worked on his show, Papa's House. So that episode's coming out in, I think, maybe January or February or something, but just did that. Jake and I are putting together a movie right now. I think if he agrees to do it, I think he said yes. I don't remember. So, and Max Greenfield, I was supposed to do an episode of The Neighborhood, but I didn't like the character they sent me. Max,
Mm.
they sent me the role of a crackhead, and and I felt offended. Max and Cedric the Entertainer, I'm talking to you two. But we are we are trying to figure something out. Um, those are the best actors and best performers and funniest people I know. And so it would be great to get back in the saddle and cook something up.
Yeah, I mean the chemistry you all have together is so great, and it seems like
Mhm.
you are like, yeah, you could just tell, like it just works. It works so well. So,
Oh yeah. Oh
uh,
yeah.
yeah, Lamorne Morris. So Lauren Michaels, give Lamorne a call to host SNL, and you can
Please.
see Lamorne in Saturday night.
Hmm.
Jason Reitman's great film playing Garrett Morris. Lamorne, congratulations again on that Emmy. That's really cool,
Oh,
and thank you for
thank
doing
you.
this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.